Pandemic has affected various industries and various sectors. We now want to talk to Mike Macharia, who is the CEO of the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers, on how the hospitality industry was affected, especially by the first and second lockdown in the 5 red-zoned counties. Thank you very much for joining us here on Bottomline Africa. I know so much investment was made, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic broke, and the hotel industry's various reforms were made in the sectors in general just to ensure that there was safety. What is the status of the sector as we speak?
Thank you very much, Ashley. The status is quite dire. We are having investors closed down. We are having properties shut down. We are having employees sent home. But we do understand that the measures that the government took were necessary to slow down the pandemic. On our end, we are looking at how can we reopen safely. Just like we did the last time, we remember we had a lot of testing within the hospitality industry. We put up a lot of investments in protocols, plexiglasses, cleaning, temperature guns, new wash basins. And we still are confident that we can be able to reopen the zone safely. As you know, there's no tourism without Nairobi. International travelers cannot come here and go on safari because the safari is outside the zone. We are only getting a few flights into Mombasa, and these are charters, which we highly appreciate. But we still need to reopen Jomo Kenyatta, and we need to get the domestic traveler also moving within these zones. And we have a few ideas that we've shared with government about how we can create a safe area, in virtual area basically, by ramping up testing, ramping up vaccine. You saw that we rolled out a vaccine program last week with the CS Balala at KICC. It's going on well. Mombasa County has taken cue, and we will start there with about 1,300 vaccines the day after tomorrow. We're in discussion with Kwale County and Kilifi County, and we also would like to engage the other safari areas, Masai Mara, the Northern Kenya Circuit, Nyeri, Samburu, Isiolo, and all these other areas so that we can get the business going.
All right, and even as those talks continue and we try to find a solution, let's talk about the fact that we do not know when COVID-19 is going to end. If we look at the situation in India, so even as we think of moving forward, even as we think of reopening our economy and reopening some of the hotels and bars that were shut down, let's talk about the fact that this has happened before. The economy was reopened, bars were opened, hotels were opened, and we saw residents flock different bars, flouting the COVID-19 rules. So then how do we solve that issue?
Actually, the difference between last year and this year is that there was really no mitigation measure last year. Last year, the only thing that one would do was stick very strictly to the protocols. And unfortunately, some of the businesses went against this. And it's not only businesses, even areas like the political scene, we saw a lot of crowding. We saw in certain churches that people decided not to follow protocols, even in the mosques. Now, the difference is that now we have a tool that can help us mitigate. And this is the vaccine. And the reason why we've been calling on hospitality and tourism workers to be categorized as fast phase is because of the level of contact that we encounter with our guests. Now, remember, when a client is coming into the country, they must come with a COVID negative certificate. So that's one of the requirements. So who's at risk here? the person at risk is the one who doesn't have a negative certificate. We are able now to deliver results in about 15 to 20 minutes with the rapid antigen testing. So if we can ramp up testing, if we can be able to vaccinate the 3 million or so hospitality and tourism workers, then we know that we are safe on that front. And then we can now continue with the protocols. I'll give you an example. If you go to the US now, the last 2 weeks, there's been major golf tournaments, and they've allowed fans into the golf courses to watch. And how did they do that? They did that because these are people who have received their second shots of vaccine. They've waited another 6-7 weeks, and they feel they're safe now to go out, but they can only mix in that bubble of vaccinated people. So what we need to do is also come up with a program whereby we have people vaccinated, we are able to mitigate the spread, and we are able to mitigate the issue of serious illness, as we are told by the scientists. And then at the same time, we are able to open facilities safely. When we developed the safety protocols last year, you remember we started with the airport. So we said we are creating a full safe zone where you have a safe airport, you get into a safe vehicle, go into a safe hotel, move into a safe national park, and back again, and fly back in a safe airline. We have created this virtual safe zone, and it has worked for us very well, because even as we continue testing our staff, the turnaround to positive cases is less than 1%. So it means that there's something that we are doing right that probably needs a bit further investigation by the scientists, and also to give the confidence to our people that you can be able to travel. A Kenyan moving from the so-called DI zone, say to Mombasa, for example, what stops you from going to Mombasa if you have a negative test that is valid at least 72 hours before? Mm-hmm. You should not be stopped. The only criteria should be, do you have a negative test? Are you vaccinated? Right now, the criteria seems to be, who do I work for? I work for the flower industry. I work for the agricultural industry. But there's really no testing across the zones. And there is a risk that we feel as hospitality, we can be able to mitigate, because it's very easy for us to vaccinate our staff, test them regularly, and continue with the business. Because this is the only way that we're going to keep this 2.2 million people employed.
Okay, now briefly, even as we conclude this interview, of course, we're not praying that such a case happens ever again, but you know, we never know what the future holds. What policies or what mitigation measures should be put in place to cushion the hospitality industry going forward in case there is another pandemic?
Last year, Ashley, the government gave us about 7 or 8 various stimulus packages, mm-hmm. and they worked very well, particularly the one with the Central Bank of Kenya lowering the cash reserve ratio and the central bank rate, CBR, because what happened is that it enabled us to borrow money at a lower cost, and we were able to keep our employees on the payroll. We also got some renovation funds, which we are trying to make a case to government that this should be an yearly thing, because we will be borrowing at 5% instead of the normal commercial bank rates of 17 to 20%. The other areas, from a macro point of view, is the introduction of multiple levies. Like now, the issue of the minimum tax, very ill-timed, because it's coming at a time when people are not making money. When you start reading about VAT on cooking gas, which is one of the main items that we use in our kitchens, then that makes it more difficult for us. We are not asking for free money. We are only asking for a proper enabling environment and a safe reopening. Then we will earn our own money, because even asking for free money really from a government that is also struggling to raise funds is not realistic.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mike Macharia, CEO of the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers, just taking time to just shed some light on the situation on the ground. But away from that, French energy group Total has declared force majeure on a $20 billion long project in Mozambique following attacks last month by Islamic State-linked insurgents on the gas town of Palma.